Good evening, friends.
Evening.
Truth seekers. Gives me great pleasure to welcome our friend Mr. Tony Toppin back again up in Tyneside to tell us all about something a little bit different tonight. Remote viewing, which some of you have not experienced yet. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand it over to Tony.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Have we all got pen? I'm Tony Topping, and I would be classed as somebody who's had exceptional paranormal experiences. What I'm going to share with you tonight is part of my journey. I would probably class myself as something of an exceptional human experiencer, or EHE, which I'll discuss tomorrow. An EHE, an exceptional human experiencer. In terms of the paranormal, I have extreme experiences, and I don't know why, which defines another definition which I call a covert witness, meaning a person or an individual who is stalked by agents and even UFOs for unknown purposes. And believe me, it is absolutely at times effing hair-raising, and it is not a peaceful path. And this is my forthcoming book called I, Alien, The Mysterious Reality of the UFO Enigma. And I'll be discussing a bit more about that in tomorrow's presentation, about what that's all about. But it's my autobiography of a very secret life that I have lived involved with the UFO phenomena. Tonight I'm going to take you through what would be classed as paranormal espionage or paranormal warfare, where, for example, the film Tenet, let me think, Inception, all that kind of thing. I've seen a lot. I've seen far too much, really. And this is my story that I'm going to tell you this evening. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some remote viewing targets. We're going to have a look at a bit of the Russian material, and then further tomorrow we're going to still continue with the Russian material. Russians, this is where we get into something called remote viewing. Russia's is very different in approach on remote viewing than the Americans. The Americans formed something in remote viewing called Project Stargate. The Russians developed it. I would suggest they probably had a different name for it. They called it information channel operating. So there's a distinct difference between the two, and the story of the Russian Project Stargate is staggering, actually, and we'll cover all that tomorrow, and we'll cover a bit of it tonight. I have been dominated by UFOs all my life, and as we can see here, this is a typical incident of a UFO coming in over my house. We can see that there's a triangle-shaped craft coming in. We can see that the object, what the object's done, it's on a local beauty spot, actually. I'm stood there filming. The triangle's flying along like that, and then from the left comes another UFO, and it rotates a 360-degree rotation and then flies off at speed for an important reason, in fact for incredible reasons that I didn't think of until I wrote my book I, Alien, because what they're actually doing is establishing communication, and they are hailing. And when you see in the American media that they're a threat, we don't know what they are, that is utter bollocks. It is not that they don't know what they are, they do, and I can assure you, as we'll explain tomorrow, some of these beings are evolved, but a small percentage of them are not. There's a small percentage of them that is perplexing, to say the least, and I'll get in that tomorrow. But anyway, we're going to look at remote viewing this evening. It's where psychic warfare meets UFOs as well. It's the ancient world of psychic espionage and spying. We're going to go through the players, the projects, the discoveries. We're going to do an RV session, so we're going to work 3 targets this evening. Those of you who've done it before always will realise that it's all about signal from noise. It's all about subconscious information. And in simple terms, that means that if I put a book in front of you and said, and put your hand on it, and I said, close your eyes, tell me the contents of that book. These are the techniques developed by the CIA under Project Stargate that developed so that they could extract information from situations and things outside of time as well. So remote viewing is the acquisition and description by mental means of information blocked from ordinary perception by distance, shielding or time. These are the techniques that are involved, and the sheets in front of you cost nearly, I would say, about $2 million to develop by the US Department of Defense, and it works well. It works very well indeed. As we can see, this is getting into my psychic visions. My first vision was of that elephant vision. I was aged 2 years of age, I call it the path of Yazmat, meaning my experiences are the causal nature of my reality. It basically means Yazmat. And it also is an indication of the unique bloodline as well. And when I was a little lad, as I'll explain tomorrow, when I was a little lad, I was 2 years of age. At 10 years of age, I was heading to a scrapyard with a pram piled with scrap. I lived in a house with no no heating, an outside toilet and no bathroom, and I was sexually abused quite often. I've been to the gates of hell and back with all this. And the thing is that being an exceptional human experiencer is not a narcissistic boast. It's quite a hell of a thing to deal with, and you don't know in terms of time and life expectancy how long you've actually got at the thunderous pace that goes on behind the scenes. And yet, to all intents and purposes in the media, we don't know what they are. We're being lied to big time. So that was my first vision. And I started in about 97 having the strange visions that came to me when I left London. That's one of them, where my first mysterious paranormal warfare vision was of a submarine and a UFO like that actually overtaking it and scanning it and all this kind of thing. I remember quite clearly, as I recall in my book, I remember a sense that the crew of the submarine were in fear as to what that was. It turns out that some of these white light ball of UFOs that we see belong to a civilization from the oceans that may be very advanced in the science of plasma and things like that. So that was one of my early warfare visions of it, the psychic, when about 97. The other one that happened was that one, which is like I remember, my God, I mean, it's hard to comprehend even talking about it, but I remember these craft coming in silent as I was asleep. They came in, it was as if they were from another world, and they came in and they dropped a beacon in the garden, and the beacon started illuminating. Tomorrow I'll talk a bit more about the ways and why-fors of what that beacon might be, but it was signalling. So what we're getting is myself, ordinary bloke, abused man, on a housing estate in Yorkshire, getting buzzed by UFOs because I've been press-ganged into something. I've been press-ganged into a specific operation that I didn't realise I was involved in. It's taken me about 40 years to work that out. Here's one, for example, a drone attack. I recall... Now let's add a caveat to this as well. I'm still not sure whether the military are larking around with artificial reality, whether there was experiments going on. I would say, from my experiences of 40 years, I have a definite liaison with those in the UFOs, and they come in all shapes and staggering sizes, and you could sit one down here in the middle to talk to us about her worries, for example, if it was an alien female, her children, where she is, you could. But yet it's suppressed in the media for very specific and sinister reasons as far as I'm concerned. But I remember when I was asleep in my house in our new house in Woodville Terrace in Selby, and I remember being awoken by what appeared to be a man and a woman. I wasn't awoken, I was actually sleeping awake. And I recall these two entities coming towards me. The term entity is a very important term. But I remember them coming towards me, and they were discussing about me moving out of the house, blah, 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 and they were quite sinister, and one of them in this dream that I'm having started getting quite nasty, and this was the shocking thing. This is where it goes all paranormal warfare, because in the middle of all this, suddenly, from right to left, and I'll never forget it, one of them things appears, firing darts everywhere. It was very vivid. That was in 97, and they were firing darts at these beings, and I remember, and I will never forget it, the scream one of these beings let out, both of them actually, a male and a female. She went tail spinning, as I recall, kind of, as I remember, but it's the scream of it. So therefore what I'm telling you is there's some sort of, not just a battle of light and dark, but some sort of psychic war going on. Some of it I can't even talk about for my own personal safety, but that's a typical example of what we would class as A, UFO flying over me, but B, possibly some sort of automated drone technology that can transcend dimensions of time and space. It's certainly not human technology. And I believe that my mother, I looked after my mother with dementia. We lost the battle with her. It was not easy. I was looking after her night and day to the final day, and it was not easy. Not easy at all trying to do that, putting up with all the antics that were going on. And this is a typical example. I'll talk about that probably tomorrow as well. But in the midst of trying to look after my mother, as I was, when she had dementia, I was also being what we'll call targeted by very advanced technologies that I'm still not sure of today. That is not an aircraft, that's a typical UFO. Later on this evening, we might actually, if we stand outside, we might actually see one of them coming over. I recently filmed something like that over Marine Lake at Southport. It came in very close to me, and I've since learned that they are part of a maritime extraterrestrial group. They're in the oceans. I was surprised that the US Navy did not disclose this, the fact that they are in the oceans and they're actually posing no threat as far as I can see. There is a threat going on, and it's a very complex picture from where I'm standing. But that was at 6 AM, at the height of looking after my mother and me cracking up, that they came in. And it's kind of like they spoke to me and told me how greatly concerned they were with what was going on. It was quite a fascinating incident I had with them. So these are kind of like a little bit of an insight into my paranormal experiences, which we'll go into in depth tomorrow. However, on saying that, this is a remote viewing crash course that we're going to do tonight for you. You see many write on the internet about psychic remote viewing, and this course will take you into what really goes on. We're going to have a look at the actual technique, access to targets, and we're going to do a bit of just some rare insights into the Russian research of remote viewing. The Russians under General Alexei Savin, they developed a whole cosmological system of understanding and science based on remote viewing. Their story is actually incredible and considered secret as well, still to this day. But feel free to take notes. I trust you've got the free sheets there. Also, during the presentation as well, we've got CDs there with all the remote viewing courses on it, packed with information. Please make a donation for a CD. There's no price, but a donation I'm grateful for. Let's go on then. We've said that remote viewing is the ability to transcend time and space, gather remote information using more than the normal or known sixth senses. I would call it an eighth ability as well, not just a sixth sense, but I would suggest that some people have an eighth ability. I could sit here now and hear something paranormal. I may not say what it is, but you can get very tuned in and become very sensitive to it. And I've had it all my life. And tonight we're going to use a technique called coordinate remote viewing. And it was developed by remote viewing was developed by the US and Russian intelligence. I say developed by US and Russian intelligence because there's a comical saga behind it, which we won't discuss now. We'll discuss that tomorrow. But there is a saga behind this that the public don't know between the Russian and US paranormal warfare units. So why did I explore the world of psychic espionage? Because in 1999, UFOs were coming in over my house. I was being stalked by lunatics, and there were strange interactions going on, as I said earlier, about me paranormal experiences. It would appear that the book I'm writing, due to these paranormal experiences, that people knew I had written the book before I'd written it. And that's a very bizarre paradox to deal with, but it does appear, in terms of what we're dealing with here, that is a possible explanation. So I'm having the paranormal experiences because I wrote a book that I've yet to write, which I've now written. It's finished. It's not gone to any publisher yet, but it has finished, you see. So for me, remote viewing provided answers, and I've had psychic experiences since a child, and none of it, I assure you, has been easy. The founder, going back though, however, our intelligence services, the first real use of psychic spies was by this guy called Francis Walsingham, and he was the founder of the Secret Service, what's now known as MI6 in 1500. He was using witches, he was running witches as a spy network to spy on the Spanish with some great success as well. So he was the founder of probably the first psychic spy unit. There's also the British early, used witches as spies, and both sorcery and espionage are by nature clandestine endeavours, which they are. And when you integrate that into the MK Ultra mind-invasive technology platforms, you really have a big issue on your hands with all that. And the use of spy, the Oracle at Delphi, she predicted a lot of things. I think there was one thing she did where she predicted what the king was having for a meal at the time. She told one king not to go into battle. He misunderstood that and lost the battle. It was one Greek emperor of some description. But this guy is John Dee, and he was the Queen Elizabeth I intelligencer. So he was the first guy to use a technique called scrying. He used a crystal ball, In other words, he was actually remote viewing. He was trying to locate the Spanish and the fleet and so on and so forth. And he was known as the first 007. As you can see there, that's the original 007 signature as used by Queen Elizabeth to indicate in top secret messages to John Dee. So 007 refers to John Dee. I find that absolutely fascinating. He managed to locate the Spanish fleet and where it was. That's a coded letter of the time. As I understand it, he knew from his techniques that the Spanish were dressed as carpenters at a British naval base and had them all arrested due to his crystal ball techniques that he was using. That's a coded letter of the time, as we can see there. If we move forward, we see the magical Battle of Britain, Dion Fortune. I know a cousin of hers was speaking to me at a conference, and she said that they would be dancing in Epping Forest rituals to prevent Hitler from invading Britain. Now the thing with that is these rituals were so, how can I put it, were so big. They were big rituals. It would trigger something called an Igorez fort form, I would think. It would trigger very large fort forms. Now according to the Dion Fortune, it did. And she was telling that these great big fort forms were like giant angels protecting the British coastline that seemed to have a mind of their own. This is because we are signal processors of the highest degree, and you will find that these paranormal espionage units from America to Russia do not consider occult or magical means to be an accurate way of processing information for psychic means. In fact, the Russian military special unit Troop 10,003 did not allow personnel who studied the occult into their ranks for very specific reasons. The reasons are partly to do with a noisy mind, and you've got to get the signal, and that's what we'll be studying this evening. There was also my friend, the psychic spy Irene Allen Block. Now she worked for MI6, and according to her, she wrote a book called The Psychic Spy, and she still, to this day, has to keep an eye on things, as in she has to keep the doors locked, she has to keep an eye on herself, because it would appear the Kremlin old guard of the Cold War are still active, she was telling me, so they've got to be careful. But basically they were using remote viewing during the Falklands War. She said that during the remote viewing section she was seeing attacks on the Belgrano and the supply ships. She actually saw it. One of the things that shocked her was that, now she refers to that as her subspace aspect. That'll be, what she means by that is the subconscious processing information and getting data out there in the big ether. But basically she said that the Belgrano had sunk. She was doing a session. She's utterly convinced that the sailor who was in the water actually looked up at her and saw her, and it's shocked her to this day as that vision. So you can see how the military actually applied remote viewing in a very big way to all this, as we can see. And there's also players and all that kind of thing, big game players involved in it, in the development of it. So if we look at the deep black component of psychic espionage, we can see that there is a black operational component to it, and every country in the world at some level is using psychic espionage. This includes the Chinese, who are actually very well ahead in all this, more so than you would think. In fact, they probably leave the British standing in it. And that's an area that I can't really talk about, other than the fact that I've had some very bizarre incidents in that area, because I've had psychic experiences all my life. I've got a website up there with the UFO contact stuff, so I'm going to be in line to be interrogated psychically at some point in the proceedings. So it all started really, I suppose, the Project Stargate, the American remote viewing program. It all started under something called MK Often. Often we achieve our goals and often we do not. That man, Sidney Goltieb, is responsible for the program. It was called MK Often because they were using dead secret agents. They were trying to communicate telepathically with those who had passed over to the other side and all that kind of thing. And they were trying to get results, hence the term, often we achieve our goals, often we do not. And it was all developing for psychic warfare programs. The French, in about 1900, were doing psychic warfare programs as well, with something called eyeless sight, where they were going up in balloons, and they were monitoring battlefields and all this kind of thing, but they were using psychic means to detect what was going on. MI5, as I understand it, were doing it in about 1900 onwards as well, somewhere around there, 1930s. So they've all got their hand in doing it. The Japanese in World War II actually did it. There was one Japanese remote viewer who was detected a lost battalion. A battalion had got lost completely. And via remote viewing techniques or psychic means, she managed to locate where they were. So you can see that the military application of psychic warfare is very real and very present, except the Americans call it subliminal information management. So you will note from that there's not a word of psychic in that term, is there? It's actually subliminal information management. Signal from noise. The system that you've got in front of you at the moment is actually to do with separating the signal from the noise. It's very effective. What it does is it shuts down the conscious mind and lets the subconscious mind take over for about 5 seconds to gather information from a target, and it's very clever indeed. So one of the most important units or agencies in all this that nobody's perhaps ever heard of is an agency called the Collins Elite. And the Collins Elite have one hell of a story to tell. For my book, I was in contact with a guy called Ray Boesch, who is a pastor, and he was approached by members of the Department of Defence. I'll talk about that at the end of the lecture actually, but they were worried, they were deeply worried at the Collins Elite that there was a situation going on where UFOs could be demonic. Actually, the Russians would probably call the demonic realm an information channel. The Russians divided it all up into information channels, and the Collins Elite were very frightened because they believed via ritual magic that a rip in space-time had occurred, and they believed that UFOs were coming into America's airspace. The Collins Elite coincide with something called the UFO Air War of 1950, where they had the F-96 fighter jets firing rockets known as Mickey Mouse rockets at these UFOs. There were massive air battles over the US with them, and the more rockets that hit the UFOs, the more they destabilised and crashed, hence the famous term, shoot them down. And it also gave birth to the process of remote viewing. So they believed at the Collins Elite that there was a demonic component to the UFO phenomena, and there is. There definitely is. Which is why you've got to be careful if you're doing occult practice and magic practice. Kind of like for the Russian paranormal warfare unit, they would not let you into the ranks if you did all that. It was not permitted, and there's a very specific reason for it. That's Ron Hubbard there. It is rumoured that a guy called Jack Parsons started interest from the Collins Elite because he was doing occult rituals. If you've seen Aleister Crowley and a few others doing these occult rituals, you will find that there is a situation going on where it leads to unsavoury goings on, and that's what they believed happens. In fact, Jack Parsons actually blew himself up in what the Collins Elite believed to be a ritual. The Collins Elite agency were very clever. They traced it back to this man called Jack Parsons. They had reason to suspect that him and Crowley were doing these occult practices, and it was causing mayhem. Now, the Collins Elite are still an agency in operation today, and they are checking to see all the time of the link between the demonic and UFOs. There is a link. It's a very small percentage, because I can assure you that out there these alien cultures are highly spiritually evolved. So you're talking a very small percentage of the opposite of that compared to the bigger percentage, if you get my drift. So begins Project Stargate. And this was the initial mission of Stargate, and this was to assess other foreign remote viewing operations, to look at how and why remote viewing worked, and to see if remote viewing could be used in intelligence gathering. And it was a very clever system. Now, when we say to assess other foreign RV operations, what do you think the American military meant by that? It's a play on words. To assess other foreign RV operations. Any ideas? It's deeper than what it presents itself. Any ideas? Okay, if you look at the autobiography of Colonel Corso, he worked for the Army Foreign Acquisitions Branch foreign meant alien. Foreign meant acquisition of alien technology. In fact, his boss, Arthur Trudeau, wrote a very short paragraph in his autobiography to indicate that that was the case. So when they go to assess other foreign RV operations, foreign can also mean alien. And believe me, if you are out there in the space-time continuum searching for targets at a subliminal level, there is a very real possibility that you will come across psychic aliens, ETs with advanced mind and advanced psychic ability, and they would definitely be able to see them. Hence tomorrow when I discuss the Russians and what they did with all this in terms of contacting ET. Fascinating. So we're going to look at how and why remote viewing worked, and we're going to see if RV could be used in intelligence gathering, which it can be. Most definitely it works, it's very effective, and it can be used for that purpose. This is Hal Puthoff. He is the guy in the 70s and 80s, directed this program called Project Stargate. The Russians, it appears, were already doing it in the 70s and 80s. They were really going for it in terms of... What is disturbing about this, I find, is that the human psychic ability, the afterlife, the spiritual teachings of peace and harmony that we have been taught in, let us say, the creator's realm, in the creator's space, has been corrupted so that it becomes weaponized. The environment, this environment that I'm talking about of the space-time continuum, the subliminal realm, has become weaponized. And what you got earlier when I was explaining all that stuff coming at me is a weaponized arena of spirituality, polluted by the military and even possibly ET. You've got quite a war going on between light and dark. Humanity appears to be in the middle of it. So there we go, he's Hal Puthoff. I highly recommend a lecture he gave on YouTube, I think, regarding Project Saucer, which is a Brazilian UFO incident, and I highly recommend him. He collaborated with a man called Russell Targ to develop the remote viewing course. Now, this, what we're going to do tonight is a crash course. It's for entertainment purposes only. The actual remote viewing courses are on the CD there, but it's the actual remote viewing stuff. If we did it, it would take a good week or so, and you probably have a lot of sheets in front of you, upwards of 8 sheets of drawings and data to get it all together. But it's a good, useful exercise we're going to do tonight. These are the key things that happened. My friend Joseph McMonigle, we've communicated with each other. Joseph McMonigle is the guy responsible for putting me onto the Russian RV unit. He has an hilarious story to tell about that, and we'll get through them. And it went from scan 8, scan by coordinate, to grill frame, gondola wish, centre lane. There's something called Dragoon Absorb, which is influencing by the mind, Sunstreak, and the one we're concerned about is Project Stargate. That's the one we're definitely concerned about. I was just looking, she has a lovely book by David Morehouse called Psychic Warrior, over there. Maureen has got that, and it's a very interesting read. Pat Price, we'll have a look at him, and Lynn Buchanan. Lynn Buchanan is one hell of a guy. He once told me, because I'd written to him because I needed some specialist support because I was having strange incidents going on, and he's quoted these famous words which were responsibility comes with ability. I was going through a phase at one point in my life where this ability was quite pronounced, and I had a habit of cutting power in buildings. It was quite freaky, like a telekinetic kind of thing. I don't have it now, but at the time, just to tell you a funny story, I was at a conference and there was a guy speaking at Probe conference, this was, and we're just about to change over. I think he was about 15 minutes to finish, and so I thought, right, I better go and plug the laptop in and get sorted out. Went to the main socket and just thought, mains, electricity, be careful, you know what you're like with it. At that moment, the power cut off in the building without explanation, and I thought, there we go. It was funny, but it wasn't, and that is very true what Lynn Buchanan said. Ability, you have to have responsibility with it, and I've learnt the hard way, believe me. Joseph McMonigle, equally hilarious story. He was telling me about the fact that they're meant to be American military top psychic remote viewers. They'd lost the keys to the sheds where they were in. They'd lost the keys. They never lived it down. According to Joseph, he said they tried the remote viewing, they tried this, they couldn't find the keys anywhere, and he was embarrassed because they were meant to be the top unit. They did eventually find the keys, but yeah, honestly, they'd lost the keys to their office. and they couldn't find them. Strange but true. There you go. Moving onward, so that's Joseph McMoneagle. He was remote viewer 01. I'm going to tell a further story about him tomorrow, but basically he won the Legion of Merit, I think it is, for accessing intelligence information by unorthodox means. He was a very clever man, and is a very clever man. He studied with the Monroe Institute, and he gathered some real information. That hence him called Remote Viewer 01. And me and him have a bit of a story to tell, which I'll tell in tomorrow's lecture. But we've got Ingo Swann.
Oh, I love Ingo Swann.
You like Ingo Swann? Yeah, well, Ingo Swann, he's the guy. Now, the other guy, the Russian opposite of him, was a guy called Alexei Savin, who's he's just unbelievable. But this guy is Ingo Swann. He discovered Project Stargate. He's the guy who developed these kind of sheets in front of you. He helped develop it with the DIA. He's the guy who studied plants and telepathy with plants and studied how they worked. He's the guy who studied the signal from noise. He also, now was it Jupiter or Saturn? I think it was Saturn's rings. By this process, he calculated how many rings there were on Saturn before the satellites went up and calculated the correct number. So he got it right via this process. There's numerous, 1,001 things that he did with the unit, with remote viewing. He studied it very carefully and developed quite an amazing system that yielded results for the US intelligence people. We then get to Albert Stubblebine. This is the guy where they lampooned him with men who stare at goats. This is the bit where he attempts to walk through a wall and fails epically. But he was the man of vision who actually developed the unit, and everybody thought he was crazy. I know when the Russians developed theirs, the Russian Ministry of Defence thought that their unit was crazy as well for even suggesting it. But oh no, there's a lot going on in it. It's real. The phenomenon of psychic warfare is real, and psychic spying is also real as well, and he was one of the major players in it. They lampooned him unfairly, I think, in The Men Who Stared at Goats. David Morehouse, he was the guy who broke the news about America's remote viewing program. He was in the Rangers, and he was in hospital, and he was having after an accident, he was having very strange visions of dark entities and all this kind of thing. He really nearly cracked up with it, and he was the one who revealed it in a book called Psychic Warrior. And what we're going to do tonight is actually do it. We're going to do what they were taught to do, we're going to do with some fascinating results, I hope. So David Morehouse. Then this man, the amazing Pat Price. And as we can see there, Pat Price is just absolutely amazing. That's former policeman. That is a top secret submarine satellite photo of a crane at a top secret Russian submarine base. That is his remote viewing drawing of it using the system that we see this evening. You can see there he is, that's it. Now, he was very good at what he did. It is rumoured that the Russians assassinated him. I don't know whether that's correct, but it is rumoured that the KGB got to him because he wasn't meant to know about a secret submarine base. The same with Joseph McMoneagle. He remote viewed a submarine base that they weren't meant to know about, and they could actually model it as well with remote viewing. They could actually do models with it and all that kind of thing. It's very clever. And Lynn Buchanan, who needs no introduction. I've communicated with Lynn. He is very good, and he uses control remote viewing, which is what we're going to do tonight. And it came about because of a long and strange period of events, including men in suits asking him to assassinate Saddam Hussein in his autobiography. He was saying that he refused to do it, but they wanted him to do it, so he followed orders, and it wasn't Saddam that got it. He became very ill. The recoil on him for projecting energy, it came back on him as a recoil, and it would do as well, because you're a signal processor, you're generating energy, what the Russians would call an information channel, and that energy can come back at you. And so he regretted that very deeply indeed from his autobiography. He's a specialist in using his abilities to detect missing people and all that kind of thing. He's one hell of a guy. And it was rumoured that he brought down, according to his autobiography, he brought down a computer network at NATO headquarters. And how the hell they knew it was him is beyond him, but that's how he was recruited into it, and that was Lynn Buchanan. Let's just go forward there. So that's kind of like the thing. I don't know what time it is, but it is normally at this point where we just break off. Is that all right?
Yes, of course.
Is that all right? So we're now at the point where we have the method now, and we're going to go into it now. It all works, and we can take some time with that. Yeah.
Ready for part 2?
Ready?
Ready? You're going to do some work this time. It's going to make it work. We're going to find out who is the remote viewers of the future.
We are. Yes, certainly.
Britain needs viewers. Right. Got your phones off. We'll have a good night.
Yeah.
Focus. Focus. Right. Don't let the sound distract you. And if you're not any good at this, it means you're very psychic. That's what Tony told me today. Yeah. So if you're psychic people aren't very good,
Yeah,
so
psychic
we can
people
take that
are
away,
useless.
can't we?
Yeah, useless. Yeah.
Right. People who are, what did you say? People who?
Yeah, people who have psychic ability would have noisy minds. They weren't really chosen for these psychic warfare
Who are
programs.
the good ones?
The
Engineers or?
engineers, musicians, that sort of thing were good. The Russian section, the Russian paranormal warfare unit would not have psychics in their ranks.
There you go.
You see, and neither would the Americans actually, for that matter.
Okay, I'll leave it to Tony to
All
explain everything. There you go.
Okay, so there we go. Thank you very much. If please do grab a CD there. It helps with the bus fare. But they'll be here tomorrow as well. And thank you very much for your support. We're going to get into this now. The method behind remote viewing, also known as signal from noise. In general, I think I'm the world's worst mental chatter and all that kind of thing. We can't define that as noise. What the Americans wanted to do was they wanted to separate signal from noise. They wanted the conscious mind to be filtered to allow the subconscious to gather information. You'll notice that the word psychic has not been used, but it is a player in all this, but they were really zoning in on the signal from noise stuff. Let's get into it then. Let's have a slow wander through it. Okay. So the mind is used as an intelligence gathering instrument. The Russian method was to use a brain tuning system to the metacosmos. The exact technique I can't find, but I've unearthed a lot of information, but the exact technique on how they did it I can't quite find. But the American technique is very present, and we'll be looking at scan by coordinate, or a technique called CRV, which means coordinate remote viewing. Some of the best remote viewers are not psychics, but I do find that people like mechanics, musicians, footballers actually, professional footballer at Blackpool who was very good at this, I do find that they're particularly good at it. The reason why is because if you're psychic, you're overwhelmed with sensory input at many levels, you see. That's hence the term noise. It causes a lot of noise. So let's just move through. So what is remote viewing? It's an attention management process for information gathering. That's what it is. An attention management process for information gathering. And it is a natural process as well. And it also defines itself. It has a syntax and a grammar for how conscious and subconscious communicates, and that is in the form of an ideogram. The actual underpinning of the ideogram is actually quite complicated, and we won't go there tonight with that, but basically the subconscious communicates with the conscious via a system known as the ideogram, which we'll come to in a moment. That little box that you see there, there's a little box, yeah, that's it. That is for the ideogram, and it's quite a work of genius actually, it really works. So we'll move forward. RV tunes into the unconscious collective mind, and the Russians called this the information energy field. I'll delve into that at the end of this. The RV uses the mind matrix, the universal mind. I call it the subconscious collective. Sometimes when I'm at my most sensitive, I will get bursts of people's subconscious thoughts. I have to be very responsible about that. I sometimes think it's a curse and not a gift, but some of us who have these abilities can actually hear beyond what is around us, and that can happen at any time, and that's because we're tuned like a tuning fork to other realms, to other situations. And we learn, and what this technique will do is it learns to tune your subconscious mind. Somebody's having bloody fireworks. Just
The
hold.
wall's end.
Now you see,
Drug dealers versus
if I was really worth my salt, I should have about 2 minutes ago gone, stop everyone, fireworks are coming, shouldn't I? Just goes to show, doesn't it, eh? But there you go. So, yeah. Moving forward. So, in remote viewing, the viewer not only verbalises what he or she is perceiving, but can record it in writing, which is what we're going to do tonight, in sketches, and sometimes even in three-dimensional modelling. Joseph McMoneagle did the Russian, I think they did it at the submarine base in a three-dimensional model using this very technique. It's very clever. So it kind of like can be used in that way, as we can see. Remote viewing is not used to give psychic readings, tell fortune, read auras or other sorts of popular activities of this nature, but it's rather a means of doing serious science research. And yes, it is. It really is a very serious area of research. We're just going to have a play with it tonight, really. In the time that we've got, there's no way you could actually fully do the full lot. It's very complicated and very advanced, but I hope you'll be entertained by it, and I hope it whets your appetite to look at it further. Have to remember that we're just doing this for a bit of entertainment value, but not only that, to understand the process. I think it helps to understand psychic functioning as to how the subconscious links, how it processes information signals. I think it helps in some serious understanding of all that, which is why I went into it in the first place. Just to move forward there. What we know about remote viewing, well, these are some classic things here. Finding the target. Remote viewers can often contact, experience and describe a hidden object or a remote natural or architectural site. One of the targets we've got tonight, a guy in the audience a few years ago just went, I know what it is, and drew the whole bloody thing. Spot on. There was one I did for the Army Cadet Force where he drew exactly what it was. It was a Korean missile, North Korean. He'd drawn the gantry crane, he'd drawn the rocket taking off, and the bloody writing down the side of the rocket, and using this technique. Absolutely incredible. So we can understand that when we start doing this process, shape, form and colour are described much more reliably by inexperienced viewers than the target's function or other analytical information. So you might find that you get the shape and the form and the colour. You might find that you get water. You might find that you'll see it very easily at a first attempt. Normally it yields fascinating results, what we're going to do with this. And sometimes as a collective we can get the full picture as well. There's some examples there, not necessarily using our sheet, but for example the target, that one there is the target of an image seen with superconductors. Can you see what they've done there? That's the remote viewing sketch, as we can see, and that one there is the target of the colour of the Lincolnshire Memorial, which they've done quite accurately, and they would be using this technique, what you've got in front of you here, the CRV technique, and there's some examples of targets, so we do know that it works. And what will have happened is the subconscious mind will have reached out to the target area for a couple of seconds and retrieved the data back again. And the technique of remote viewing is to separate the consciousness so that the subconscious acts independently and gathers the information required. Hence the mind being an intelligence gathering instrument par excellence. What these remote viewers did, people like Joseph and Lynn, through years of training, is they honed this skill. They honed it until they knew what they were doing with it and could get the data straight away. And it works. It really works. There was a recent report online about the Russian Defense Ministry wanting to use remote psychic soldiers. The Americans were way ahead with it. They adapted this for the infantrymen in the field. They actually thought that soldiers in action could maybe use this system to detect enemy movements and all that kind of thing with accuracy. But you can see there's some examples there. So I've had to be very careful when I speak tonight to not give anybody prior knowledge of the targets. Any visual or audio distractions, anything in the environment will tend to clog up your conscious mind, your subconscious mind. It tends to jam it, you see. And there is a group collective in all this. So for example, there was one incident we had in Wales where we got a Tibetan temple as a target. And it was quite amazing because somebody had drawn one half of the temple, somebody had drawn the trees around it, somebody had drawn the steps to it. And when we put it all together, it was the target, hence the term the group collective to enhance remote viewing. It may be that some of you tonight, with the targets that we're going to work, it may be that some of you get one part of it, another person gets another part of it. When you put them together, it builds the picture of what the target is, you see. So we've got to, what they did, these remote viewers, is they got the technique of filtering mental noise and chatter and filtering it out to allow data to flow. And that's when your intuition can kick in. That's when you've got those quiet Zen moments when you can start hearing things. And it's not easy, but that's what it was. Signal from noise. Now, if you look at your sheet there, you'll see that there's the TRN stands for Target Reference Number. And the box that you've got there is an ideogram. It's known as the ideogram. And the ideogram gives a 3-second window into the collective mind. It gathers information like a zip file. Keeping it very simple, that is actually quite complex, but it's explained in very simple terms. So we can see that the TRN and the ideogram go together, and what it does is you've got to draw the ideogram. I'll just move forward. And here are some ideogram symbols, and what will happen is when I give you the target reference number, we'll walk through the first target, we'll walk it through, and then we can see what the results are. But here are some ideogram signals. So when I give you the target reference number, I want you to suddenly and very quickly draw with a pen. That was a bit slow, that's ideal, that's speed. Scribble, that's speed, very fast. The faster the better, because it causes the subconscious mind to open up to the information matrix and retrieve information. And experienced remote viewers can decode these ideograms to understand what is going on. And 9 times out of 10, even a complete beginner will have an ideogram like that or an ideogram like that, especially structure man-made. 9 times out of 10. And that one, energetics explosion. And 9 times out of 10, it will link to their drawing. They're on target with it. Sometimes you'll find with remote viewing that you'll be looking down like that on the target, as has happened to me on a couple of occasions, because the subconscious is gathering information. It's quite amazing, and I think sometimes the only way to get the hang of it is to actually do it, as we'll see. So they're the ideograms, and what you've got to do, the ideogram, your little box there is the key, and it sorts a signal from the noise, and you then decode it, and the ideogram holds the target, and it creates a signal line between you and the target. Any questions on that so far?
Now I understand what they were doing on the far side, because they keep going back to it, don't they?
They do, yes, and there's another thing that we're going to look at called AOL, which is actually a filtering system to filter the conscious mind out the way to allow the subconscious mind to come in. It's clever. It's remarkably clever.
Tony, can you go back?
Back?
Because you explained like the triangle is a structure man-made.
Yes.
Could you just go through what each one of them?
Yes, of course not. Yeah.
Because
So
people at the back can't.
oh right, sorry. So we've got an ideogram for the subject person. So if there's a person at the target location, you'll get a rough drawing like that. And believe me, it's absolutely correct. This is what happens. You will end up drawing if you draw an ideogram like that, there's an indication that we're looking at a person. If you draw a structural ideogram like that, there's an indication that it is a structure that you're looking at. Mountain, of course, is a natural. It's a language of the subconscious. At a more advanced level, it's to do with responses from the autonomic nervous system from the target to your brain. The brain is a signal processor, but that's a complex area that we don't want to get into. Water and liquid, always, you might get that ideogram at a dry land one, and the guy in the Army Cadet Force actually drew that, an energetic explosion one, because it was a rocket going upwards with lots of explosion around it, and he got that pretty accurate. Does that make sense? So it's a language, yeah?
So just to check, so when we get the target, we write that down, and then we just do instinctively.
Yeah, I'll walk it
So
through.
do we have to do one of those symbols?
No, you just do a symbol that springs to mind, but you'll probably find that when you look at it, 9 times out of 10, so if you close your eyes and drew the ideogram, you open your eyes 9 times out of 10, it'll have a rough kind of shape like that. And I reckon quite a few of you will have that one. And that's how it works. It's a clever system, and it's designed to decode the subconscious from the conscious. And with the most experienced remote viewers, what they would do is they would actually decode those symbols, and it would lead them down the path of the data that they required. It's actually a very, it's complex what they did, but it's simple in a way. It's a work of genius really, and it really works. It's designed to filter noise from the conscious and subconscious mind, you see. Now let's move forward. So there we see, so the ideogram is the key, as we've said. It sorts the signal from noise. Don't worry, I'll walk you through it, and you'll actually see an actual example on the screen here. The process then decodes the ideogram. The ideogram is the key, that box is the key, and it holds the target data. So we retrieve information from that, and as you can see as you walk down it, here we go. So I'm jumping the gun a minute, but basically we've also got a thing called AOL, Analytical Overlay, and it stands for, let's call it, it stands for the consciousness mind being overwhelmed with information, and it's a way of filtering it. So there are many types of AOL. It's spurious thoughts. So as you're working the target, you suddenly, so for example, you're working the target and suddenly a pint of Guinness pops into your head. That would be an AOL, a spurious thought that you don't want in your mind, and you would declare it under AOLs there. Don't drop the pen when you're doing it, because we're only beginners. We don't want to be doing that. But basically the procedure is, if you're doing an AOL, you've got to break off and then resume kind of thing. Let's move forward here. So we've got different types of AOL as we work the target. So for example, we've got a continual feedback loop. Let's say it's a lighthouse, it's a lighthouse. Second one, a rapid flow of ideas. It's a lighthouse, it's the sea, it's a boat, it's a battleship. Oh my God, it's Admiral Nelson's sailing boat. Can you see that? A rapid flow of ideas coming into the mind. Or this is a classic which a lot of you will do. You see a church and it's a cathedral. You see a boat, but it's a plane. The target was a plane. You see the plane in the first 3 seconds, but then think, tail end, oh, it's a ship, and write down a ship. Well, that's actually an AOL. That's actually a looks like or could be scenario, which we will also get this evening when we do it. These are the
if we're seeing a bird, we could mistake it for a plane.
Yes, when in fact the target was a bird. Or if you see a plane, you could mistake it for a bird when the target was a plane. And in some rare cases, the full target is declared in AOL, which has happened a couple of times where they actually think that they're incorrect and it's all junk, but yet the full target data is declared in AOL. There's a special name for that. I can't remember what it is, but basically it can happen on rare occasions where the target's in the AOL and they've fully drawn the data and everything for it, thinking they didn't trust the mind. You see, that's basically the AOL. So can you see, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see we've got an ideogram there. I don't know whether the guys at the back want to actually come and have a closer look at this so you know what I'm on about. That might be useful. Is that all right, maybe?
Yeah.
Come and have a look at this screen, because I think you'll be shortchanging yourselves if you don't. Just come and have a close look.
So can you just remind what AOL is?
Analytical overlay. Analytical overlay. In other words, noise from the conscious mind. So can you see what they're doing there? I'm going to give you a target reference number. They draw the ideogram, water, structure. Can you see what's happening there? They've got, see how it works? It's actually the Titanic she's drawing, the sinking of it. Slick textures, and then what we'll do is we'll turn it around and you draw on the back what you think the target is. Do you see? A reference number is very important. It directs you to draw the ideogram, and then you work through the data, and then you draw what you think it is. In real life, if they were really going to go for it, that would come up to 8 sheets long. We haven't got time for that. It's only for entertainment, but it would be 8 sheets long. With data and information, they really go to town on it. Amazing, isn't it?
So that's what we do, like a quick, and then we go, oh right, this is what I feel.
Yeah, that ideogram is structure on water. Right. Can you see how the subconscious communicates what it is? The subconscious has actually told her that she's looking at a structure on water via 2 lines. It's incredible, isn't it? There you go, yeah, incredible stuff. Yeah, is that all right, gang? Yeah.
And the only information that at that point is the number.
Yes, which is the reference number, that's the bingo, yes, as we call it. Yeah.
Give it a go.
So sometimes you've just got to do it.
Just do it.
And on the first one, that's what we're going to do. So we're just going to do it. We'll work through it and just turn it round and just draw what you think the target might be, as you can see. So I'm going to give you a reference number. You're going to draw the ideogram. I'll just go back. So that's what we're aiming for with the ideogram there.
Just
Straight off the top.
That's it, straight off the top. AOL declares the joint force.
Did you get any textures, colours, sound?
So yeah, that's right. As Maureen's rightly said, actually, did you get any textures, colours, sound? There's some guidelines that static mental images are almost always noise and therefore mistaken information. So what would cause noise? That mirror might cause noise. That causes noise where you get big images in your head and they blot out the target zone, you see. That's that, okay. And also as well, if you're looking into the target and you're strong on dimensions, for example, if it's a skyscraper and you just see the shape of it there, very strong, then there's a possibility that you are on target. There's also, always, every time, people will normally get it right that there is either motion, life or energy present at the target, and they will always get that right because we are a subconscious collective and therefore we are signalling to each other all the time. We're like radio receivers, quite amazing, and transmitters for that matter. So I think the best thing to do is give it a go and see what happens, yeah? Yeah, okay. So let's just do that then. So let's walk through it. As we can see, that's another example of the ideogram. I'll just point out again, the ideogram she's drawn, man-made structure on water. She would decode that data, go through it. It's actually the sinking of the Titanic that she's done, but actually she's declared whale as an AOL. So she's been doing it, she's onto it, and then suddenly she sees this vision of a whale, which she believes makes no sense, so she's declared it. And the ideogram there is just awesome, I think. So there you go. Right, I'll give you the first bingo.
So a man-made structure does not have to be a building?
A man-made structure does not have to be a building, no. No, it could be anything. What I'll do is I'll just give you the first one, and then we can go through it. So the first target reference is 10, 70, 13, 63. Draw the ideogram, draw the scribbly line.
10, 70, 1363.
Yes, give yourself time to look at that ideogram once you've drawn it and just think about it and then work through the data, constantly referencing to the ideogram, nothing else, the ideogram. What is it telling you? What have you drawn there? What is the data? And then as you go down it, you'll discover the textures, the colours, the smells. Were you there? There's one that says the anesthetic impact, i.e. one word only. How would you describe it if you were there? What you've got to then do is turn it over and draw what you think it is on the back. Of course, in a real exercise, it will be bigger, there will be lots of data, they will be trying to really go for it, but in the short time we've got, it's effective, give it a go, you'll be fascinated with the results. So, have we drawn the ideogram? I think we have. We're moving now to imagining any textures, colours and smells at the location, tastes and temperatures and sounds. Got to imagine all that, got to think, look at the ideogram, what is it telling you? It tells a story, it's the key. The dimensions, so for example, is it moving, has it got motion to it, how dense is it deep, is it high, how high is it, what are the smells and sounds like and temperatures to it. How would you feel if you were physically there? And simply turn it over and draw what you think it is. And if you're stuck with that, turn the page back over and look at the ideogram again. And then try again. Keep locking into that ideogram, it's the key to the data. So you, in your ideogram, look at it, it's telling you a story, definitely. You've got water in that ideogram. Your subconscious actually
But
knows.
flowing
Yeah,
as a
brilliant.
colour, I don't know.
Colour fine, but flowing, great. Your subconscious is kind of like decoding it, but the conscious is very noisy. That's the thing. You'll kick yourself when you see it.
I don't understand dimensions. I didn't understand that.
So the dimensions, it's kind of like, is it the depth of it? Is it kind of like, how can I put it? Is it 4 dimensions? Is it like a house with dimensions to it? Is it a triangle shape? It's kind of like, let me just, I'm not explaining myself very well, just a minute. Let me just a minute. Just a minute. Because there's normally a slide that I have on that describes that.
Is it fair to say if you're not a good drawer, they could just use words to describe?
Yes, you can, and that has happened as well, very accurately, yeah.
Right. I can't get to I don't understand it.
If you don't understand it, move forward, turn it over and just draw what you think the target is. Look at the ideogram, it will tell you. This lady here has actually got her subconscious on target, believe it or not, and the technique is decoding it, you see, as to what it's telling you.
Not telling you.
What's A1?
Analytical overlay, that stands for the conscious and the subconscious mind. Stands for the consciousness being overwhelmed with noise, and it's a way of filtering it, you see. Would you like me to reveal the target?
Yes, please.
Are you sure? Has everybody done it? So the target was that.
Oh!
Yeah?
The humber. Oh!
Yeah?
Oh, look what I drew.
Go on. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, yes, seawater, grey
Well, I thought it
salt.
was a bloody submarine.
Yeah.
I put it. What did you put? Yeah!
But I didn't.
But I put
went in a
green.
different direction.
Seawater.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
But I got foghorn bird.
Yeah. Lumber Bridge, anybody get that? So you've got structure in your ideogram, you've got structure of water. It works. Your subconscious tells you what it is. Clever, isn't
Then I
it?
started analysing it.
Yeah, you start analysing it, it goes down in our
And
card.
I've got the central pillar.
Got a picture of
You've got the central pillar, you got that, yeah? That's a strong dimension. Let me just...
Wow, I'm getting a whole kilo.
Yeah, so dimensions, sorry about this, should be heavy, thick, massive, dense, slow, back and forth, right, high, narrow. There's some example of dimensions that remote viewers would use. I'll put a slide in next time just to clarify that, but that's basically what they would use as dimensions, yeah?
I've got the lot in this one.
Yes, so you've seen, what's happened with you is that you've seen the structure of the bridge. You've had an AOL whereby you've seen it, but then your conscious mind has gone, it's the Loch Ness Monster, when your subconscious mind actually saw what it was.
But it was water, you see.
But it was water.
Because you see, for texture,
Yeah.
I've got skin, scales, colour, green, grey, blue,
Yeah.
smell of the
Do we
sea,
start the next one, George?
taste fishy.
All right.
Are you going to ask everybody what they got?
Yeah, yeah.
Who got what?
Who got what? Yeah.
I got that.
So, water for your ideogram.
I
Yeah.
think you do it.
What's that, lovely? I just can't see.
Yeah. You've got the central colour.
So you've got a structure type ideogram there. Metal, grey, cool, loud, long, dense, cold. Side of a building. That's interesting. Side of a building. The reason why I say that is because a friend of mine drew the prison, actually zoomed in on the prison that's near the Humber Bridge. It was fascinating. Have a look at that one. So you've got sand, yellow, sweet, warm, soothing. And then you've got like a structural ideogram. So really, kind of like, when you think about it, you've drawn the structure, your subconscious has pointed out what it is. Do you get the training of it? So the subconscious actually points the way, but the conscious mind isn't trained to recognise, and that's the hurdle that you've got to get over, you see. Anybody else draw anything of interest?
You get?
Oh, well done.
I'll do mountain.
So you've got, yeah, so you've got
got
that's it.
Yeah, well.
But it's amazing, I think it's actually going
Yeah.
the central
Yeah.
structure.
So
Wow.
this lady has got brown, grey, earthy, salty, cold. Then she's got low noise, water, and then she's got like a. So what's happened there is perhaps the subconscious has maybe seen that, but has gone for it being a house with a roof on it, when initially it was actually probably right on target, seeing it. This is the key. This is the training that they did. Is designed to filter the conscious from the subconscious, and eventually with practice you would get it spot on. Do you see how it works? Even initially, in this beginning stage, there's rough traces of the data of the target coming through. It works, and it works very well. It's just it takes years of training. Low noise, water. Anybody else get anything like that then? Structure, bridge, no?
I've got a
No.
volcano.
You've got a volcano, yeah.
That's the structure for, that's the symbol for structure.
Yes, now this, yeah, it is. So what, she's got the correct ideogram there, which is like a symbol for structure, but because she's a conscious mind and subconscious, they're not trained, she hasn't kind of like trained her mind to realise that she's looking at a structure and to follow it through. But I mean, for God's sake, it's your first go, obviously. But you see how we're getting it, how effective this method is. Is that one, was it yours? No? Yeah. Shall we move to the next target?
Would you be able to shout it in your mind?
Shout it in your mind.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So that I know what you're thinking about.
No. No. That would actually, so you should say that. No. I tell you what, the reason why I say this is because there was something called, it's part of analytical overlay. Now what happens is with the US, I'll come up here, what happens is with the US, when they were doing, that's a good question what you've asked, when they were doing remote viewing, right, they had the guy who was doing the remote viewing session and a monitor who was giving guidance. However, they discovered that the monitor could actually interfere with the process of the remote viewing because we are subliminal signal processors. So when you think about it, the remote viewer is now getting a signal from another biological source that could interrupt his signal line. So it's not a good method to actually do that, they discovered. It's a very valid point that you raised, but they found that in some cases it affected the session to have somebody doing that. Hence them using the TRN reference number system, like the target reference numbers and the ideogram, you see. That's a good question. Shall we move on to the next target? Let's do that, okay. So that was the Humber Bridge, and a friend of mine actually, when she did it, she didn't draw the bridge, she drew a prison. And what was fascinating was she just drew it with all the windows and everything. The prisons is kind of like to the right there of the target. It was just an amazing result. The next reference number then, sorry, the next is, did you listen to the noise or signal? So, did you see a lake? Did you see a boat? Did you assume the bridge to be a boat? Did you assume the water going under the bridge to be a lake? Do you see how it works? How this noise and signal and filtering system has to work when you're getting overwhelmed with data?
I thought it was a submarine.
Yeah, so that would be, yeah.
When I said that, it was like something was going under the water.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the Loch Ness Monster.
And you've got the Loch Ness Monster. So you see that's the conscious mind leading the subconscious to where it doesn't want to go. That's noise compared to signal, you see.
For noise, sound, I got metallic.
Yeah, yeah, there's a possibility of that because the Humber Bridge, it's on suspension, swings in the wind, so you might get that kind of metallic sound. And were they present? Well, yes they were, weren't they? In some of your ideograms, they were definitely present. The water one, the structure of the man-made one, they were definitely present. There was no getting away from it, which is incredible because I hadn't prompted you to do that. It's like a language, a subconscious language that speaks. The system that Ingo Swann designed was very clever, to say the least. Very clever. As you can see, that's like a collective language. And some of you had structure man-made and water. Some of you had it both at the same time.
So how many people had water?
Yeah, how many people had a water ideogram? Yeah. How many people had the structure type ideogram? Yeah, yeah, and a combination of the two, maybe, the water and the, yeah. It works, you see, it's very clever, isn't it? Yeah, very clever indeed. We'll move on to the next target. So that one is 0792 7040. Same process, just draw your funny line, move forward. Anything strong stands out. Colours, shapes. Are you getting strong shapes? Look at that ideogram. What is it telling you? Where is it directing you to? Turn it over and draw what you think it is. Strong dimensions is what we're looking for. Is any particular shape really standing out? And if you'd like me to reveal what the target is, please give me a nod. Everybody ready? Would you like me to show? Okay.
What is it?
That's the crash.
UFO crash?
Yeah, that's an Italian UFO recovery in about 1934. Mussolini thought he was being invaded by Martians. It's known as the Palermo UFO crash. It's meant to be a recovered flying disc by the Italian military. And at the time, Marconi set up something called Cabinet RS-33 to look at whether they were being invaded from Mars. It was quite Mussolini was concerned about it, and that's meant to be the recovered disc. And it's also a target of strong dimensions as well. I don't know if anybody got the steel bar, maybe? That's a very strong dimension. Yeah, so that's energy. You've got an ideogram for energy there. Yeah.
And also the circle.
And the yes, you've got the circle there. Yeah. Somebody's got. Go on. What have you got there? Look. Yes. So that's a classic. So you've got the circle. So your subconscious is actually telling you what it is. It's actually a disc, but you see it as the sun. It's training, isn't it? The subconscious says disc. The conscious says, oh, it must be the sun. It's the training. Can I use that?
Hey, look at this.
Oh, hang on. Somebody's. What have you got?
This is Tony's.
UFO.
I've got rockets.
Burning, humming, great.
Look on the back.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, look at that. Oh my days, just look. Who's that one? Well done.
And I got so much it's on the ground.
Oh yeah, you've got it as well, haven't you?
So much that's hidden on the ground.
That's a bloody good one, is that, mate? Yeah. So you've kind of like got the rough kind of gist of it there. That's quite outstanding. That's quite outstanding. So, but what happens is you will note that his conscious mind directs him to put a person stood there. His conscious mind directs him to put a lake. His subconscious mind is telling him that it's a disc. He's got the shape of it. I'll tell you what is amazing. He's actually got the shape of it when he turns it like that. So his subconscious mind is actually locked on to it and what it is quite fully there. And Palermo in Italy, I don't know if that's in the mountain regions of Italy, because you've got mountains there. But there's a lot of... that's fascinating. That's really good, actually. I really like that. That's excellent.
I put those these on the back of mine.
Yeah, so you've got that as well. Have you got the colour grey? You've even written grey as a colour. Yeah. You've got battleship grey. So you can see even as a collective, we're getting data. Even as a collective, it's zoning in. It works, doesn't it? So look, what have you got?
That was Richard.
That's Richard.
And it's a circle. But,
you see there, Richard's
what's that say? Hot barbecue.
Yeah. Hot barbecue restaurant or Indian. That's the conscious mind telling him what it is, where his subconscious tells him, but the conscious diverts him.
It's amazing, actually.
Yeah.
And that was John's.
That's John's, is it? So you've got structure, man-made, near water ideogram. So he's done a structure there, man-made, and then when we turn it over, oh look at that, he gets the shape of it, and then his conscious mind says it's a lorry on a road. So do you see how the training comes in to filter the subconscious from the conscious to retrain information? This is what it's about. But even at this very basic level,
hers was spot on.
Yeah.
But then she thought it was a mosque.
Yeah, that's a typical. Yeah. So somebody here again has got. She's actually got the steel bar.
Yeah.
But she thinks she's looking at a mosque. Clever, isn't it? How the conscious interrupts. Absolutely fascinating. I think that's absolutely great. I think they're great. Just great drawings. I don't know whose they are, but
yeah,
great stuff.
Mine's a rocket.
Rocket.
And I've got high, fast, solid, flame, glass. For sound, rumbling and raw, hot temperature, tasty talent, smells of oil, colour green. Textures, metallic cylinder.
Metallic as well. Wow, that's good. That's
And it's
impressive.
fit as a ship, same colours.
Same colours again.
And smells.
So you've zoned in on it, haven't you? It's very impressive.
I'm surprised.
What's that one?
It's got the round shape.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was a square. Yeah, it's got the round shape, yeah, definitely so. Yeah. That's good. That's a good one.
I got that, and then I thought there was a lorry on sculpture. And then the other man was seeing Twin Towers falling, so I knew it was a crash.
Yeah.
Totally way
Well,
off.
I got darting movement, which is what
Yes.
would be before it crashed, and then that's it at the end.
You got the steel beam there, didn't you?
So when was this crash?
39, about 1934, 39.
So that would be before before the Nazis.
Yes, yes, Mussolini, I understand it, recovered it. I don't, by the way, it's a good target. I don't know whether we're looking at an actual UFO if it's out, but it's still a good target to use. He wrote a letter to Churchill, as I understand it, saying he was being invaded by Martians. This is Mussolini. Unbelievable, isn't it? Are we ready for the next target? Shall we have another go?
Yeah.
Good. This is excellent. This is really, really good. One of the best groups I've seen as beginners zoning in on stuff. It's really good, really impressive. Let's go to the next one then. Are we ready?
Yeah, unconscious mental status.
Yeah.
You have to rate the number.
So that's it. 27508753.
Stop now.
27508753. Strong structures, any colours, strong structures, strong symbols we're looking for. 27508753. Any strong symbols, shapes, anything like that coming through, you'll be astounded when you see the target.
It's really hard not to analyse, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's an art, it's a skill. This is a skill.
You're doing very well, Carol.
Done very well, yeah, you've done really well. I've done this a long time, and some of the drawings here are just outstanding, considering they're beginners and you've not done it before. Would you like me to reveal, or are you still drawing?
Reveal. Are we really finished?
Everybody, like me to reveal? Yeah?
Oh, what is it?
A Nordic symbolic vision.
No, I couldn't have been further away.
Yeah? People normally do get the clocks though, because it's a strong dimension. You what?
I've got the triangles.
Yeah, all the triangles.
I thought they were pyramids.
Yeah, there was one guy who said, I know what that is, and drew the bloody thing exactly. I couldn't believe it. That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. The doomsday clocks, yeah. I'll discuss it probably tomorrow, then I'm not repeating myself, but it's basically a vision I had in 2014, one of my first, and it was that. Incredible.
Is that your tattoo?
My tattoo is actually of a Nordic ET. I don't know whether you can see it, but my tattoo was done by Sketch from the Tattoo Fixers. E4. And the reason they gave me, I was very lucky, they gave me that because of the extremely wacko life that I've led. So they gave me that tattoo to celebrate. I was a very lucky guy on that. So yeah, Sketch tattoo. That's a fence. Actually, that's very well observed. There's a story behind that.
Because I've got grass, green.
Yeah. Oh, you have, yeah.
It's not green.
Yeah.
It will be.
No, it is green. It is green at that location. It definitely is. I'll explain more about the warning tomorrow, but basically, some of you may... This lady's zoned in on that area there, yeah? Note the field, yeah?
Oh, I got that. Was it me?
Yeah, you've got it as well, haven't you? Yeah, people have zoned in on it. Sometimes it's the clocks and sometimes it's the field.
Any pyramids?
Any pyramids, anyone know?
Yeah.
Yeah?
But I thought it was a pyramid on the side.
So you see this lady got the pyramid shape, got the triangle shape, but actually thought she was looking at pyramids on the sand.
Well, that's easy.
Easy, that's AOL, so that's analytical, that's the conscious mind directing her to where she doesn't want to be, taking her off target. The skill is in zoning into the subconscious and how it operates, you see.
So that field,
Yes.
what is in the field?
So the field, those triangle craft are symbolising that they will appear over that field. They didn't, but what is equally mysterious is there was a very large military air exercise involving the Luftwaffe
Where was this?
and the RAF at Selby, where I used to live.
Tony, what do you think of that? Well, look at it, I mean, it's two pyramids.
Yes,
But
yeah, so somebody's drawn the two pyramids there.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, and you've drawn that one. So that's like a, yeah, so people have got the pyramids. You've drawn that, you got it first, and then thought it was the Star of David. See it, the training, the training the subconscious to understand what it is.
well, I thought it was a train crash.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, honestly.
So that's kind of like, there was major air exercises going on over that field, and I had that vision in 2014. And that, for example, is one of the Special Forces, Hercules, and he's got an eyeball on that field. It was all happening over that field. Dogfights, aircraft coming in, aircraft going out. It was a major air exercise. I forgot the name of it, but the important thing to know is it was on that field. Now, we wondered, my team actually wondered, if that Hercules was being shadowed by some sort of UFO because of the UFO activity in the area. And as we can see, under analysis, we were quite correct. There was some type of UFO shadowing that Hercules. From our analysis, from Jason's analysis there, we can certainly see that it's being shadowed. So the thing of what I said earlier of opening hailing frequencies and the fact they're being communicated with is a very distinct possibility, very indeed.
There's another one with the pyramid upside down, bright yellow. There was bright yellow in that, wasn't there?
Yes, with the Nordic guy, yes there was. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. There we go.
There.
Yeah.
So she got air upwards
Yeah.
and bright yellow.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's pyramid there.
Pyramid, yeah, yeah. So she's drawn that in the ideogram. She's actually drawn that in the ideogram. It's clever, isn't it?
Well,
Very
plane, if that means anything. You got the plane that was...
You got the plane, did you, mate? Excellent, excellent. So right, forward.
You just
Look,
need to
field.
practice a bit more. When
Yeah.
you get that title.
You get it. You start getting honing in on your intuition.
I got a train crash.
Down the swell, I've got the farm.
You get a plane. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Be a field.
There is a farm in the field to the right. That's interesting, isn't it? To the right, yeah, fascinating. And that's what we believe is a UFO near the Hercules there. After some analysis with Jason, something was definitely watching the Herc. There we go again with the analysis there. We believe that the UFO was definitely shadowing it, as we can see there. It's part of an air exercise that was going on over the town. And the UFO, we believe, was active following it. And this, of course, is what we're going to get into tomorrow, which is Alexei Savin's KGB unit 10,003. I'm going to cover a little about this next. It's a different presentation. It's just a very simple introduction to it, so I don't want to overload you. But basically, they studied people with superpowers, not only to heal, but to convey thoughts to foresee the future. And they can influence the situation and behaviour of people. That is termed walk-in mind operations. The Americans called it remote influencing. The other things that the Russians could do was they believed that there was an operation going on called the Metacosmos, and their remote viewers were called information channel operators. And we're going to get into that now and a bit more of it tomorrow as well. So let's just go there. That's a maritime ET. In 1997, in one of my early experiences, I had something like that looking back at me and saying hello. I'll never forget her. I'll go into detail with that tomorrow as well. Just move that. Yes, that's the one I want to look at. So we had an incident where we had a situation going on where I'd lost my mother, I'd lost everything. I was having to have major hernia surgery all in the same year, and one of those pink triangle craft turned up over me for about 5 seconds. There's every chance that you could go out there tonight and see something, but it happened. About 5 seconds, there, gone, and then there was that again, she came back. That was taken in about 2019 when she came in over the rooftops, a beautiful emerald green UFO coming over the rooftops. I want to talk about that tomorrow as well. So I'm going to bring this section of the presentation to a close. Perhaps we can maybe have a break, maybe? Yeah, have a break, and then we'll come back and we'll do the actual, we'll just cover a bit of the Russian material, and then we'll call it a night then, yeah?
Is that all right with
Is that all right? Yeah.
No panic, no panic. Put kettle on, put kettle on.
You know the picture? Do you come by the reference?
Oh, that's a good question, yeah. The target reference numbers are random generated numbers. I had to go online and go to the TRN generator. It automatically generates numbers. There's been that many numbers used that they're now on letters and numbers. So it's not, it's randomly generated. You can't use... No, I go to something called the TRN generator and it generates the number for me. Yeah. The number is to direct the subconscious to where it needs to go, to bypass the conscious mind. It's to do with links to the automatic nervous system. It's very complex but simple. So those numbers direct the subconscious mind to the target, and that is all they do.
Satan.
Yes.
Well, actually, it isn't actually pronounced Satan, it's pronounced Satan.
It is pronounced that, yeah.
And Satan is the Islamic word for an evil spirit.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's absolutely
That's
correct.
where they got it from.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I thank Tony very much on behalf of True Seekers North East, and can I give you a little gift?
Oh, God, yeah.
A little gift, a True Seekers North East t-shirt.
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you.
There you
Oh,
go.
very nice. Thank you very much, darling. Thank you.
And then if you would